we are going to learn our first tetrachord. A tetrachord is the first set of 4 notes. We're going to use 3 fingers, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we're also going to use the open string, in which case we will not have any fingers on the string, but all the fingers close and ready. So in order to play the first tetrachord, we're going to set up our violin with our hand on its shoulder. We're going to make sure the violin's level and that we don't have any tension, that we're scoping straight down the violin, and that this part of the shoulder rest is flush against our body. If not, we're going to give it a little push up. Now we're going to place the thumb about 1 inch from the nut of the violin. We're going to bring the elbow to the inside, which brings our arm up and our fingers above the fingerboard of the violin. We're going to go ahead and squeeze between the thumb and the first joint of the index finger. That joint is going to be back, maybe not all the way to the nut, but pretty close. And the finger is going to be all the way above the violin. If you get part of your hand above the violin, you're going to get reaching too far forward. Just the finger. Just the finger. If your finger is very, very long, you might have a small portion of your finger hanging below, but most beginning students never have that happen. Curl the first finger onto the tip and the tape. Make sure you're making a box. The finger is hitting on the tip and that it's centered on the string. Set your second finger down the same way, and your third finger. Make sure you're squeezing in towards the violin and down with each tip of a finger. If at any point one of the tips slides around or moves, you forgot to squeeze it down or you're not on the tip. So keep it right on its position. Be very careful not to go past the position into the black spot in between. And let's pluck 4 times on the third finger. Lift it up to second finger, first finger, no fingers. Did you notice that I kept my fingers near the violin? If you have a hard time with this, set down all the fingers, even the pinky. And if the pinky's hard to place down, you can just tap it lightly. Tap it lightly. Make sure that it hits on the tip and curved. If you're having a hard time reaching your fingers and they aren't reaching to the violin, a lot of people forget to turn the palm in towards the violin ever so slightly with each finger. So I can be out pretty far. When I place the first finger, it brings my palm in a little bit. When I play the second, it brings it in more, third, and fourth. So first, second, third, fourth. See how that palm is pretty close to the violin? I'm close. I'm not touching the violin, but I'm close. The further away your palm is, the further away the joint of the finger is, that's too far for you to reach your fourth finger. Can't reach it, it'll be straight and it won't be able to curve on the string. If you want it to curve, rotate your arm in towards the violin. Rotate it in, give yourself a nice princess wave, right towards the violin, okay? Now we're going to build it the opposite direction. We're going to go what we call up the scale. This is the first 4 notes of an 8-note scale. This is the first tetrachord. So let's balance our violin. Place the thumb on the pad, not too high, making sure we have a small hole. Keeping our arm on the inside of the violin, reaching up to the joint, having all the fingers above the violin. And then what we're going to do is before we play anything, we're going to set down the fingers. Finger number 1 on the tape, squeeze in and down. Squeeze 2 down hard until the tip turns white. Squeeze the third finger and squeeze or tap the fourth finger gently. Now lift every finger right above their place, not touching the string, but keep your squeeze between your index finger and your thumb. Let's pluck the A string. Ready? Play. Add first finger, second, third. Make sure to practice this slower than I just showed you, several times. Go slow and listen to make sure you make a clear tone. If your tone isn't clear, if your sound isn't clear, Make sure your fingers are centered on the strings and squeezing so hard that the tip turns white. If your sound sounds different than mine, you're probably either missing the spot, or you haven't marked the spot, or you need to leave your finger guide on, or your fingers are coming to the back edge on the pads instead of the tip. If your nails are too long, this can cause an issue as well. If you haven't clipped your nails yet, clip your nails so that you have very small amounts of the white part hanging past. You don't want very much white on the end. Some people with really long fingers that hang out past, they can actually have a little bit of a white nail, but most students and children and a lot of girls can't have that nail at all because they won't be able to push their finger down on the tip. If your nails are so long that you can't press your finger down on the tip, you shouldn't be playing your violin until you clip your nails. And if you have fake nails, you shouldn't be playing the violin. Take them off. On the violin, when we're playing fast sections or sections that go up and down the scale, we do a blocked fingering. And a blocked fingering happens when you keep all the fingers down on the violin. If you have just one finger down, that's called an independent finger. That's a more advanced technique. You'll be able to play faster and more consistently and keep your fingers in the correct spots if you keep your fingers blocked. So remember to keep the fingers down if you can. So we can start the tetrachord with blocked fingers. I set down each finger carefully and squeeze, and I can go right down the tetrachord. And then if I want to move that tetrachord to a new string, I just rotate my elbow more inside to get to the next string. Make sure if you're moving to the next string that you lift your fingers and recenter them. If you don't move your arm when you go to the new string, your fingers are going to be in the wrong position and they'll sound very weak, or they might give a scratchy sound. Just as when we change strings, we need to change our elbow and arm position. On the left hand, when we change strings with the bow, we need to also do that on the right arm. We lift the wrist and the elbow together to change strings with the right arm. So what happens is we come more down, or on the outside of the violin for the E string, and more up, or on the inside of the violin for the A string. When we begin to play on the E string, it's very important that we watch that our hand position changes and our arm position changes, because if we stay on our A string position and we just move the hand over, we're going to squish our hand down. We're not going to keep our good hand position. We need to keep that good hand position. It's very essential that we set the violin on the E string just as centered as we do on the A string. You don't want to be off center. That'll pull you'll notice if you get off center, your thumb's going to come up and your joint's going to come down and your first finger's going to come sideways. That's the biggest no-no of fingering on the violin. So I'm going to be very aware of that as we start playing pieces that go to the E string and use the first finger.